Hello and welcome back. In this video I'll be discussing candlesticks. Now, the term candlestick in backgammon means if you put a whole lot of checkers on one particular point, like if this happens or this happens, that would be called a candlestick. Now, let's say you roll a 4 and a 3 as your opening move. And I'd hate to repeat myself, but as discussed in the previous videos on opening moves, the best move for a 4 and a 3 as an opening move would be 4 and a 3, advance those two back checkers here. You would not play a 4 and a 3 here, because you would be forming a candlestick there, and it's not useful to form a candlestick on this point because there are plenty of checkers here to form primes here. For example, if you happen to roll a total of 5 and have a checker here, then later you roll a 3 and a 1, then you roll a 4 and a 2. The good thing is you have a spare checker here still to be able to prime here. So you really, prime the two key priming points here, and you still have a spare checker there. So in other words, you have plenty of checkers on this point to begin with. So it would be absolutely inadvisable to form a candlestick on this point here. Now, candlesticks in general are not the ideal situation, but what would happen if, say, you roll a 6 and a 5? Well, a 6 and a 5 as a standard opening move would be to get one checker out of here and put it here, and well, you formed a bit of a candlestick here, but that's okay, because straight away on your first move you've actually moved a checker from a back position into a good position here. Now, what if, and this does happen from time to time, you pretty much immediately roll a 6 and a 5 straight away, or for argument's sake you might roll a 3 and a 1, then you roll a 6 and 5 again. What would you do? Would you avoid taking this checker here in order not to form a candlestick? I mean, would you move a 6 here and a 5 here? Some people would do that because that leaves one spare checker here for ideally priming these 2 points here. But if you play a 6 and a 5 there once again, that candlestick there is fairly harmless. Now, you've basically turned this into a little bit of a running game, but to form a candlestick here is not too bad because you can always use spare checkers here to prime points here or here with a double. And furthermore, if, for example, after that you roll a fairly bad roll like a 2 and a 1, well, from that position I would play a 2 and a 1, 2 and a 1 here. Now, you might think that that's giving a free hit to your opponent, but from this position, a 2 and a 1, it's pretty much unavoidable to leave a checker on its own. I mean, with a roll, as I've mentioned in the previous video, 2 and a 1 is often a bad roll. So in this position you can't play a 2 and a 1 without leaving a checker on its own. So I would move a 2 and a 1 here, and well, the chances of getting hit are basically with, let's say, 6 and 3 for example, but if your opponent cannot make a roll where he can hit you, then with the next roll you can possibly use this checker here to come either here or, you know, prime a point, like with a 3 and a 1, then you can prime here, for example. So therefore, if you roll 2 6s and 5s in a row, it's pretty harmless to leave a candlestick here. I mean, you've taken these 2 checkers out. If you roll a 2 and a 1, sorry, and you get hit, well, you go back there, but you had this checker back here a short time ago anyway, so you've only got 1 checker back there in your opponent's quarter if you get hit. Therefore, forming a candlestick there is pretty harmless. Now likewise, what if the question comes to mind? What if you end up in a position where you form a candlestick, like for example rolling a 6 and a 5, then later forming a candlestick here? In my experience, it's been pretty rare to form a candlestick here. Like I said, if you roll 2 6 and 5s in a row, yes, you will form a candlestick there, but in my experiences, forming a candlestick there has been a pretty rare experience. But once again, it's reasonably harmless because you've got plenty of checkers here to prime here and possibly prime there. You could always, you know, use these checkers to prime with a double. I mean, forming a candlestick on this point, you're pretty close to your home quarter anyway, and it's not like you formed the candlestick here. You got spare checkers here to prime. That's reasonably harmless as well, although it will not happen. You will not come across many situations where you end up having a candlestick at the beginning of the game there. So when it comes to candlesticks, avoid forming a candlestick on this point. You will end up forming a candlestick on this point if, you know, there is no other viable option, or in the case of 2 6 and 5s in a row, it's pretty harmless. The other word of caution I would give you in forming candlesticks: do not end up in a situation where in your end game where you are trying to bear off the checkers and take them off the board. And this does happen from time to time if you are desperately trying to get checkers in your own quarter to, say, avoid being gammoned. Well, that's not a good example, but let's say trying to get your checkers in your own quarter as quickly as possible to be able to bear them off, because your opponent's already bared off 2 or 3 checkers and you're in a hurry to quickly get in because you're behind. You might end up in a situation like this where, you know, you're just desperately trying to get all your checkers in here to start bearing off because you're significantly behind. Again, it's not the ideal situation to be in. It's a situation you're going to end up in where you've got candlesticks here and here on the 6 and the 5 point. It's a situation that you get forced into in some games. It's not the kind of situation you want to end up in. But if you have several bad rolls of the dice and you end up in this situation, that is tough luck, hope for the best, avoid it as much as possible. So I basically mentioned that because that's apart from the situations I mentioned in the end game, that is one situation where you don't want to form candlesticks on the 6 and the 5 point, especially. So, you know, plan your strategy in a way to avoid these kinds of candlesticks as much as possible. But as you gain experience, you will see sometimes it's unavoidable. But in that sense, if that happens, I would wish you the best of luck with the subsequent rolls of the dice. Anyway, thank you for watching.